So thank you, ladies, for agreeing to come on the Ultra Fest. So we are calling this series the High Talk, and this is the number third talk that we're having. And I have Sujata, Tanvi, and Shibani with us. And so what I want, ladies, is just introduce yourselves. So rather than me trying to introduce you in a wrong way, so starting with you, Sujata, just go for it, please.
Hi, thanks a lot, Rajat, for inviting us today. I'm the author of 99 Not Out, Your Guide to a Long and Healthy Life. I was a Mint columnist for 10 years before that, writing on preventive medicine, and I have a PhD, and I'm a biological scientist. I've done work on stress-related research, and I'm also a certified life coach.
Hi, Rajat, thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm a professional badminton player, been a member of the Indian team for the past 15 years. I'm also a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and I run a podcast called The Millennial Athlete, which is where we interview sports persons across different sports and try and bring each one's journey to light. So that's where I'm placed. I'm just about in the process of transitioning out of my pro career into the sport management side of things, because I do have a master's in sports management as well. So wish to contribute to Indian sport in some way going forward.
Shivani?
Hi, I'm Shibani. I am a journalist. I work for two business channels, CNBC TV 18 and CNBC Awaz. And I took up running a couple of years ago. I started running marathons and then ultra marathons. And over the course of past 8 to 9 years, actually, I have completed 23 full marathons and 23 ultra marathons. I love to run, it all began with, taking it as an activity to keep myself fit. And then I just fell in love with it. I'm passionate about running as a sport. And apart from that, so taking my passion forward, over the past 1 year, when there were no races happening, there were no ultra marathons happening, the travel was restricted. I finished two certification courses when it comes to marathon training as well as sports nutrition. So this is what I have done over the past 1 year. And as I mentioned, I love running.
I'll just say a little bit about myself as well. So I've been running for some 36, 37 years. Started off as wanting to represent the country, didn't do that. Went to a medical college instead. But marathon, ultra marathons have been there for a while. So I was running something called Paris to London way back 2004. I did my best half marathon in 93, I think. Speed-wise is not an issue, can run very fast. But now it's about just making other people run. So that's what it is. And as I said, the idea of this fest or conversation is to reach out to as many people as we can, people who are not even active, and how can we excite them about movement. So that's the reason of this conversation, okay? And again, Sujata, so just a little bit more about your journey in sports, physical activity, if you're like just saying a little bit more about it.
Sure. No, I'm always enjoyed yoga, and I've enjoyed my walks. I love being in nature, and I find that it's, it has a dual purpose. The walking gets you to be outdoors. You get to breathe in this fresh air. You get to be in the green. So it has an impact on both the mind and the body. But like I told you earlier, I'm looking forward to starting my running journey. I'm excited about that, primarily because I noticed that in my mid-40s, I'm able to up my fitness levels. I never thought that was possible. You think that your body is degenerating and, you're going to have to make all this extraordinary effort to up your fitness, but that's not quite true. It is effortful, but the results are actually visible right away. And I don't mean physically, but mentally. You feel so good after you worked your body hard. You eat well, you sleep well, you're happy. The endorphins are sort of have kicked in, so you're happy. And I just experienced that over the last 6 months, and I'm looking forward to enjoying making friends with my body better. So I'm liking that I'm able to push myself. I'm looking forward to seeing where I can go with that. And therefore, I'm 5K is my goal. I'm going to start with the 5K and then we'll see how it goes.
You're in bad company. Don't worry, you'll get there. So, yeah. Tanvi, please say a little bit more about your career, sporting career, and otherwise as well, work as well.
So when it came to badminton, I think I picked up the racket at the age of 9, and then it was, a step-by-step journey in the world of professional badminton. You play for your city, you play for your district, you play for the state, and then you finally, once you become a national champion, is when you get into the Indian team. So got into the Indian team at the age of 15 and moved from my hometown in Mumbai to the national center in Hyderabad, where it was like military camp. So sessions would start at 4:30 a.m. and we would be training through the day till about 7:38 in the evening. So you're eating, drinking, sleeping, the sport. You travel for tournaments. I was part of the Asian Games medal winning team back in 2014, and then the Uber Cup 2016. So those were some of the landmark moments as far as my badminton career is concerned. Got to a career high of 48 in the world in women's singles. Played the World Championships in 2016. So yeah, I've been pretty active on the pro circuit. But there's a lot in Indian sport that I feel can get better in terms of sport science, the individualistic approach to each player. There's currently too much talent and not enough coaches. There's not enough support staff. It's very generalistic. So there's a long way. I think there's a lot to be done to get to being a sporting nation, which is why the podcast started. And so now post the lockdown, I think in terms of sporting goals, I'm more or less done. There's nothing really left that I want to achieve, which is why I've decided to move into the next phase of my career. But yeah, I love running. Staying active is something that I'm extremely passionate about. And I think after the pandemic, the next big pandemic is seeing people becoming more and more obese. So especially children, like childhood obesity is becoming like the next pandemic. So my friend gifted me a book called Born to Run. I think it's Born to Run, and it had a line saying we're all running people. And like you mentioned, it's an instinct. Like you can walk, you can stand. Everyone's meant to move, and people have forgotten that. Especially with working from home, I think you're sitting at a laptop, and most people end up with like hip injuries and lower back issues, and that's because you're sitting too much, not because you're moving too much. So yeah, I think people need to start moving.
Yeah, Tanvi, just one more thing. What percentage, I'm sorry I'm putting it like that, but what percentage of these pro athletes end up having a career, like the way in the direction that you're going right now? How many have shown that, and how many actually take up that career rather than falling aside, on the waysides?
Yeah. So the way it works in a country like India and China, especially, like you put in so much, invest so much in that 16 to 23 age category. So your education basically takes a complete backseat. And then if you're really good, you do get picked up by these petroleum companies like Indian Oil or ONGC. At the age of 16, 17, you're paid a stipend and you play for them through your sporting career. And then you're assured of like a government job once you're done with your sporting career. So either you take that up, or then people get into coaching. But very few actually, go out, do their MBA or pursue, a passion and would like to contribute to sport in some way. So it's a very small percentage. I think most top players have gotten into coaching. Gopi Chand has opened his academy. Anup has opened his academy in Bangalore. So it's either high performance coaching, or very, very few have gotten into the policy side of sport or the media side. Very, very, like a handful probably.
We're talking about single digits?
Single digits, yeah. I can literally count the number of people.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I asked. Yes. Shibani?
Yes. So mine is a very interesting journey into running. Essentially, it was year 2012. And, I used to run, like I stay in Mumbai, very close to this place called Shivaji Park, about 1.5 kilometers away. So as a workout, since I started working, I used to find running easy an activity to pursue as compared to actually going to a gym or going to a swimming pool, because you can run anytime you want. Like even if you turn up, return home at 1 o'clock in the night, you can still wake up at 10 the next day morning and step out for a run. So I would just be regular with running, and I would go and do like a kilometer or a kilometer and a half, sometimes 3 kilometers around Shivaji Park and come back home. So one fine day, elderly like guy came to me and he's like, listen, you run so much, why don't you sign up for Mumbai Marathon? So I didn't know that there was any such thing called Mumbai Marathon that happens every year. Like I knew that I could see the runners passing from in front of my house on a particular day in January, but I didn't know the process of registration, etc., etc. So I said, okay. So I came back home from my run and I Googled Mumbai Marathon from my laptop. And as you know, the registrations for Mumbai Marathon get full pretty early. So, I mean, of course, the 6K Dream Run registrations were full. The 21K registrations were full. So what I was left with was a 42-kilometer full marathon.
Oh my God.
I have, been, I have been a taekwondo player in college and I'm used to the 3 hours of practice in the morning and 3 hours of practice in the evening. I have done the drill. So I used to think, how difficult will it be to run a 42 kilometers? So let me just sign up for that. And everyone kept on saying, I had no running friends. Okay. So everyone kept on saying 42. Matlab 42 kilometer. Matlab, are you telling me that you will be running from Dadar to Panvel? So I'm like, okay, like I'll give it a try. Let's see what will happen. So this was in 2012. I think around November 2012 when I registered for Mumbai Marathon. And then I was in between two jobs in January 2013. So there were 15 days to go for Mumbai Marathon. And I was in between two jobs. And in between those two jobs, one of the weekend, I did my highest distance, which was a 17 kilometers as a practice run for Mumbai Marathon. And then came the Mumbai Marathon weekend. And I just went to the start line. I was in like beach Bermuda shorts. Like I didn't even have the proper gear to wear for a run, and a normal t-shirt that you wear to the gym and gym training shoes. And I started with my first full marathon and I did finish, and I finished it, sub 5 hours. And I was like, okay, done. I did it. So like, let's move on. Let's have beer. Let's have lunch and dinner. And I had no clue that, finishing a full marathon, and that too within 5 hours, is such a big deal. For the next 11 months, till Star Sports called me for the next Mumbai Marathon saying, hey, listen, you did your first full marathon in 5 hours. So we want to cover your journey for this year's race. And I actually asked them, yeah, so is that a big deal? So, and this guy, he's like, yes, it is. Like, to finish your first full marathon sub 5 hours is a big deal. So that's when I found out, and I had actually registered for another 100-kilometer race that year. So, I mean, this is how, I started running marathons, and without knowing what kind of a beast running a marathon is, or, running an ultra marathon is. So that is the beginning of my ultra journey. Over the course of past few years, I have, from experience, I have learned a few things, how to go about running these races, how to hydrate yourself, how to work on nutrition, etc., etc. But whatever it is, whatever, I have learned is, at the job, I have learned it through experience. I have never had a coach. I have designed my own training programs. I have designed my own eating and nutrition plans during the race. And that's how it is. So as I mentioned, I have finished 23 full marathons and 23 ultra marathons, attempted a lot more ultra marathons, but couldn't finish some of them. Finished 23 actually.
No, that's great, because at Laltra, our tagline is failing is not a crime, lack of effort is. So listen, You've done amazing. Don't worry about that. But what's your best time, Shibani, for a full?
4 hours. So 4 hours and 28 seconds. I missed sub 4 hours by 28 seconds. So, I mean, I was running with a friend of mine, and, at a crucial juncture at Pedder Road, when it was 5 kilometers to go, he had to take a loo break, and I couldn't let him go and, continue running. So I waited, and that's where I lost like a couple of minutes. He was sadder than I was when it came to, getting that stuff for. But I mean, it's okay. 4 hours is good enough. Like, I have no such, hang-ups on, ki 3:59 hi chahiye ya kuch. So it's fine.
Perfect. No, that's great. Okay, so the idea today was talking about building resilience. That's what we were talking about, and where Sujata and I really connect is, probably you don't know that, Sujata, but just finishing a book called Movement Medicine, and what we're doing with that book is we're working on doctors who are not practitioners of what they preach, or they don't preach actually. They don't even preach physical activity and mental health and all that. But our the hypothesis was that doctors are not talking about some common things which are common across all fields. So they're not talking about movement. They're not talking about physical activity. Okay, so that's being the first vertical or the pillar. Then the second one is they're not talking about mental health at all, or very little. They're not talking about nutrition, not talking about sleep.
Yeah.
And so Sujata covers that in a book, 99 Not Out. But my approach to this is talking about these four and saying, how are doctors doing or not doing, and how can you do? So it's a different approach to the same subject. I'm not talking too much about the spirituality part or the happiness separately, because it's across anyways. So saying,
Totally. I fully agree.
Integrated. So it was very interesting when I started reading the book. So I've started reading the book. So Sujata, just going from there. So, you were talking about resilience and the 4 points that we were talking about. You were talking about gratitude, mindful presence. And then you say kindness to yourself, or self-compassion, and then resilient mindset. Now, same stuff I say differently. So I talk about, be your best friend, for example, right? Now, just let's start with gratitude. So say something about gratitude and where is this coming from?
Yeah, so, gratitude is at the basis is being thankful for what you have, right? Whether it is fitness, whether it is, the fact that your parents are well in these times, whether it is the fact that your, children are able to go to school, whatever it is, even the basics to the achievements we make, the small goals to the bigger goals. So gratitude is that appreciation. And the moment you have that appreciation, you are connecting with something bigger, right? You're either you're grateful to your family, or you're grateful to a higher power. And that immediately, research shows us, puts us at a different happiness quotient. So there is a research to show us that. We know that through experience ourselves. The grateful people are happy people, right? There is that direct correlation. And I found that in my own experience. So, I started by just writing down, with everything that I've written on with the columns of the book, I have experimented with it myself. So I will spend a month or two on every single habit that I write about. And gratitude too was like that for me. I wasn't, when I started this journey on wellness, I wasn't a very spiritual person, but the one thing when I came across gratitude as a concept, I started to write down in a little notebook 5 things I was grateful for every day. And I did that over a month. And it was remarkable, right? Just writing it down before I went to bed. And it could be something very simple, like, that cup of coffee that your husband gave you in the morning, or it could be that, some flower blooming outside your window, the fact that it was a sunny day. It could be anything really simple, right? Or it could be something more profound, depending on where your mind was when you went to bed. But just that simple act that took a couple of minutes made a profound impact on my mood. So, and that was the beginning of, the journey. And now I do a lot more spiritual work, but I'm in a Gita satsang, I facilitate Gita classes, etc. But, that aside, I think gratitude is something that is almost inherent to the human condition. We just have to access it, a bit like running.
So even I was introduced to this concept by a sports psychologist during my playing career. And it was often, you get on call to either vent or to discuss your state of mind, or just to check in. It was a weekly phone call. And, he one particular conversation, I think I was venting too much, and he didn't give me an answer to anything that I was venting about, whether it was training related or it was, I'm not receiving my due on court. I'm losing to certain opponents I shouldn't be losing to. I was in a very negative mind space, and he asked me to, okay, all this is given, but why don't you just start doing this every day? And the moment my focus shifted to those 10 things, it became like, a checklist that I had to make at the end. It could be, any time of day. I had to do it and, fill it in and give it to him. And it just, there was a change in vibration, or a change in, just your approach to your perspective changes basically, because you're just focusing on, you're zooming out, looking at the bigger picture. There's so much going for you when you are, your mind has narrowed in on those 10 things that are not going well. The world is going on, in a particular way. Everything's going for you. There's so much going for you. And that simple reminder of writing 10 things down, it just reinforces the same. So I think it just puts you in a lot, in a much better space mentally. And it's a great habit to, I haven't been doing it off late, and I'm going to get back to doing it. I think it's a good reminder.
So I actually practice what Sujata mentioned, although I don't write it down in a journal, but I say thank you to 3 nice things that happened to me in a day before going to bed. So I have made it a habit, especially, in the past 6 months. Actually, the past 8 to 9 months have been really, really rough on me. I have lost like quite a few people who were close to me. Like I lost my dad in December last year. Then I lost my mama and mommy in couple of in a span of 5 days actually during the second wave of the pandemic. And then my next door neighbor, who was almost like a sibling to me, so I lost him as well in the month of May. And it has been rough when it comes to losing even colleagues at work and all of that. So at a point in time, no matter how positive you are, you just you just start thinking, what the hell is going on? Why is it happening to us? And then, I had reached a point where I had become so negative and bitter about so many things, being very, very critical of many things happening around me, snapping at, things which are completely unnecessary. And then, I used to think that, this is now not how I am. And, I started practicing and saying those 3 nice things that happened to me in a day over the past few months. And that has really helped me. But overall, I am a very, very positive person. Like in life, I am extremely optimistic. Like I'm the kind of person, if last minute your flight gets cancelled and you have to book another flight which is like through another airport and all of that, I would say, hey, I haven't seen this city, so it's a good thing that we have a stopover at this particular city. So I'm that kind of a positive person. Really, people sometimes find me very irritatingly positive. And when it comes to events or races and stuff which are really difficult kind of a thing, difficult trails where I'm running on, then I just, I just look around the nature and, I thank trees and I thank mountains and I thank cloud and the open sky, the fresh air I'm getting to breathe. So I keep on thanking these small, small things. And it's just wonderful. I think I got it from my mother. Any difficult situation that she faces, and she will never be dejected or upset about it. Yes, for a couple of hours, but then after that she would be like, yes, okay, now move on. Okay, we have been sad enough and just move on. It's okay, at least we have each other. I remember when earthquakes happened in Latur, and I was in school. I must be in 3rd standard or something like that. And around that time only we had seen this movie Waqt. And I got to know what earthquake was, and I still remember what she said. Okay, because I was really frightened at what was happening, and it was negative news all around in Maharashtra, and Latur was still feeling these tremors back then. And my mother would say, okay, even if we die, we're going to die all alone. So what's the big deal? Nobody's going to be sad for each other. So it's just fine. Just it's okay. So that is, I think that positive perspective is what I get from her. But over the years, I have known what is to be thankful to the universe. So let's say, for example, I'm in a race and it's just, I've done some 100 kilometer or 120 kind of kilometer, and then everything in your body starts failing, like including your head, it starts hurting. So your quads are hurting, shoulders are hurting, hamstring, glutes, everything is hurting. And then, like you keep on, wondering, why am I doing this? And, why do I have to put myself through so much pain? And then suddenly you realize that, you should be thankful that you can actually do it. There are so many people in the world who cannot do it. So, I mean, I just keep on, bringing in that gratitude in my life and in my thoughts in a very small ways. So, I mean, that has really helped me over the past so many years.
At Lal, so when we have this race in Ladakh, and Sujata and Tanvi haven't seen it, and I don't know, Shibani, if you have. So the whole Milky Way that you can see when you're sitting on the pass, on the top of the pass, it is so phenomenal. So when you talk about gratitude, it's just at a different level altogether.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I can only imagine. Yeah, sounds amazing. Sounds.
You're going next year. You're 1 year away from it. So.
Okay.
And what about mindful presence, Sujata?
Yeah, so I think the piece about mindful presence is about building self-awareness and understanding that recognizing rather that you can put your attention in a very intentional way, right? So it's really crucial to notice where your mind is at and bring it into the moment. And that's really what mindful presence is about. And you can inculcate it. We all know about meditation. We know about yoga. I personally have been practicing yoga for years. I find, yogic breathing very useful in bringing myself back to the present. And we also all know that when we are in the present, that's when the best work that we do happens, whether it's, physical effort, whether it's exercise or running or anything else that we do. Any achievement of any kind requires that complete focus and being in the present and in the moment. So I think it's about inculcating that, and there are several ways in which you can inculcate that, like I said. So whatever works for you, and including, I think, pushing yourself physically. I think like running, if you set yourself targets that are ambitious, you start small, but as you build and as you go along, you need to be in the moment to complete that race, I imagine, right? I haven't run one, but I imagine that's the case because I've seen that as I've upped my physical fitness, that I had to be in the moment and think of nothing else to be able to complete those, 1 hour or 1.5 hour long workouts that I've been doing the last couple of months. So I think that intentional attention is very important to inculcate.
Tanvi, so take us through something in your career like that, where that whole thing about living in the moment kind of a thing. Just take us through one of those.
Yeah, so I think, we train, obviously, we train for 7 and 8 hours in the day, and you do end up practice because every time you're on court or every time you're in the gym, you have to kind of zone in and focus to get the best out of that session. But one thing that I wanted to highlight is that at the pro level, especially the top 20 players, they're all physically they're all at the same level. They've played the game for 15 years. They know tactically they're all on point, and it all boils down to your state of mind at that particular moment. So at the Olympics, you see certain players who are touted to win certain matches really easily and make it to the knockout stage, and suddenly they freeze, or they just the enormity of the Olympics gets to them. So it's very important to kind of train the mind to be in, and the mind is such, it's like a monkey that will get it go, either it leaps into the future, or at 17 all, at a crucial stage in the match, you'll be like, oh, last time I was playing this opponent, or I was playing another match and it was 17 all and I lost 21-17. Or you have players coming up to the coach and saying, I'm not very good at 20 all. When it goes to deuce, my hand starts shivering when I'm serving. Or when I'm in the lead, I fail to capitalize and I end up losing. So these are the common excuses that come up from players. And it's very often because the mind has either gone into the future or has is picking up something from the subconscious inadvertently. So, and it's different for every player. So, in fact, my co-host on one of the episodes in the podcast mentioned that he won his semi-final, and the first thought was not that wow, we've made it to the finals of this Polish Open. It was, oh no, I need to pay $600 to change my flight ticket because I was booked today, and I need to book another room in the hotel. Like especially with the Indians, we're counting, you're on a shoestring budget. So everyone's okay, I need to book a room. And that was his first thought. He mentioned that in the episode, and we had a hearty laugh. But that's so, you with a sports person, the mind, you don't know what's going on in that mind. It is so complex, and there are games being played mentally all the time. That chatter between the 2 ears is constant, incessant. So we try to build positive self-talk. We try to keep that that chatter at a minimal, but it's impossible to get to a stage where there is no chatter, there is no noise. Especially in cue sports. So we were speaking to this snooker player, especially in a precision sport. The time in between when they're actually sitting down has to be managed very well, because that's when the self-talk happens. That's when all the negative self-talk comes to the fore. So he was like, it's impossible it's a utopian scenario where there's not going to be chatter going on. It's you have to it's more about training yourself to think the right things at that point than trying to quieten the noise. So yes, we do talk about, as athletes, doing yoga, doing meditation, to pre-match people do yoga nidra to little bit just calm the nerves, but it's actually about managing your thoughts when you're in the zone, when you're on court for that 1.5 hours. It's about managing your thoughts, thinking the right things at that particular time, not letting the situation get the better of you. It's more about that. But yes, getting into the zone is what we all try to achieve. It's easier said than done. Some people use routine. Some people, like Rafa Nadal, uses routine, his 6 bottles and his bandana, and everything has to be in sequence. But it's very difficult to, at least for me, it was a warm up. It was a very, very intense warm up. Your heart rate, you should be sweating. You should feel like you've played a set and now I'm ready to start the match. So that really, I'll be in one corner with my headphones on. I don't want anyone talking to me. And then I go straight onto court. And usually that works to get me into that zone. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from when it comes to being in the present, being mindful. Yeah. And one more thing is managing your nutrition. So sometimes a lapse in concentration, we don't realize it because we feel it's all mind over body, but the body talks to you. You need to fuel your body accordingly. Of course, it's different for each person and you have to be in tune, but nutrition plays a key role in mindfulness, especially as an athlete at different stages of the game. And I'm sure in running, it's very measured. It's much easier in an endurance sport than in an HIIT sport, because it's not so like it depends on the length of the rallies. It depends on whether you have an attacking style or a defensive style. But yes, nutrition does play a key role in your mental focus and in being mindful.
I totally agree with you, Tanvi. I mean, the human brain spends 50% of its time in wandering attention processing, whether it's neutral or negative thoughts. So I think this idea of not just working on mindfulness practices, but actually supporting them with positive thoughts right before, important events, performance events, whatever they may be, is super, super important. And this nutrition piece, Rajat, I wanted to mention to you, I have a son who's a student athlete, and we've recently, it's been a couple of years, we've gotten him some attention with a nutritionist, and it's really up to his ability to stay the course in his matches. And he's a cricketer. and I didn't, I mean, even though I've learned so much about this, I didn't know, because I'm not physically there with him, how many calories you burn. Like, when you play these matches as a cricketer, you can burn up to 1,000 calories, and that needs, steady replenishment through the day. That's a simple point. It's not but just in terms of numbers, and recognizing that for young athletes, including for you, Tanvi, your bodies are still growing and they're still developing. We're developing till we're 24 years old. So it becomes very important to recognize the importance of nutrition, particularly for young athletes. And then the same, of course, goes for us as we get older. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
And, nutrition or the science of performance, what's been happening is cricket, for example, we all very happily, it's very fashionable to just not like cricket. I also don't like cricket. But the thing is, for Cricket World Cup since 1999, we've been having sports medicine conferences during the Cricket World Cup. So I was part of 2004, 2007, I was representing the subcontinent. 2011, I was supposed to be the chairperson for the one happening in India. I mean, didn't do it because politics in India. But the thing is, there's so much science, but sadly, none of it is coming to the fore when it comes to Indian athletes. So that know-how has been there, but everyone's working in silos. And, again, Tanvi, that's something we can talk separately about. But Shibani, talking about this whole in the moment, and all three, probably please, your taekwondo, you said, shorter distances like a marathon maybe and an ultra. Could you just take us through in the moment thing? How important is that?
Yes. See, I mean, when I run marathons, I mean, you must have gauged from my previous, what I answer or what I said when and how I began my marathon journey is the lesser I knew about the challenges like hitting the wall, lactic acid, VO2 max, and all of these terms, the lesser I knew about these things, the better, I was. Yeah. Once I started knowing all of these things and, the limits of human body, and when you hit the wall, what is the kilometer when you start draining, the onset of blood, lactic acid, all of these things, I think they restrict you like to a great extent, and you start thinking more and more about these things as compared to focusing on the kilometer that you're in. So I know for a fact that I start hitting the wall between 25th to 28th kilometer. This I have learned over the past so many races that I have done. But when I started, I didn't know any of this. And then I would push through even that. So I think for me, it is extremely important to just focus on that, few hundred meters that you are in, or that 1 kilometer, let it pass and then think about the rest. So many times you start thinking, like in overnight races, especially, the day will come in and, how will it hit the body? Like, how will the heat affect my performance? I will probably slow down, or, whatever will happen, I will stop and stuff like that. The more you think about it, the more you are restricting yourself, like while you're doing so. The second most important thing that I do, is block the crowd and block the noise before the races. Like, I mean, it has happened to me actually that, I have met and spoken to a few people, and, I have heard things like, if you don't make it in this one, don't worry, there is a qualifier which is happening after 6 months, so you can participate in that. And it has actually made me stop and think and wonder whether I will be able to push through this particular race. So what I've started doing is block all of these noises that are there around me, whether it's social media, whether it's speaking to people. I only speak to my family and loved ones before like an important race, or even an important interview, or like a conversation or a discussion that I'm having on my show. I've applied the same principle that I use in running to my life, to my job as well. And it has worked amazingly well. Like, you go ahead confident, you go ahead with your own thoughts, you think about the present, you think about the the time spent on that particular field when it comes to the race, or in an interview that you are in, and it has really helped me. So these are the two things that I practice. I don't think about, okay, how will the finish be, or how will the next 10 kilometers are going to be. Just be present in that particular kilometer. And that has really helped me sail through the toughest of the events.
No, great. That was amazing, Shibani. Sujata, again, that bit about be your best friend, have compassion towards yourself and others, obviously, be kind to others. Now, what about that?
Oh, that's been such a journey for me, Rajat, because I'm a very self-critical person, right? And, getting a PhD in a molecular biology didn't help because 85% of your experiments fail. That's just the nature of the game. And you're really young, you're 18 years old, and you're away from your family, and you're in a lab, and you're, working hours, spending hours in the lab, literally, mostly by yourself at night. So it's not an ideal circumstance to be failing. And but I think that sort of set the stage for me as an adult to figuring out how to sort of get out of that mindset, because it's not a very helpful mindset to be self-critical. And then I came across self-compassion, again, through my writing. The column was a lot about self-healing as much as it was about putting that information out there for other people to make use of. And then I came across this wonderful research on self-compassion, where the researcher really broke it down, and she said self-kindness was an important piece, as was mindfulness, but we've already talked about it. And the third leg for self-compassion is recognizing that you're a human just like everybody else. So if you are having your challenges, everyone else is too. But to get to that self-kindness piece, I found that liberating, right? The idea that you are meant to be as kind to yourself as you are to your best friend, as you are to your children when you have children. And that's been a game changer for me because, first recognizing the chatter in your mind, the self-critical voice, and then transforming it, replacing it with a kind voice. And it's a process. It doesn't happen right away, but it is hugely supportive for any goal you set out for yourself, whether it is, whatever it may be. And I'm definitely somebody who, sets goals for myself, and I like to achieve them. But the satisfaction is very different when you're coming from a self-kindness space versus a self-critical space. So I'm definitely becoming a happier person as I get older because I'm practicing self-kindness. And I think it's critical. It's critical to being human. And of course, when you're self-kind, you are kind to others. You can only genuinely be kind to others when you are kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Otherwise it's a farce. It doesn't really
No,
help.
I absolutely agree with you, Sujata. And so many times I have realized that, being self-critical also comes from the fact that we also start comparing ourselves to other people. And then, you look at the other person and you think, oh, this person is doing so well and, this has happened so well. And then you completely forget what you have done yourself and your journey and your achievements. And then you start saying, okay, like probably I could have done it this way and I did this wrong and that wrong. So even I have started practicing that, in terms of reminding myself that where you've come from and what you have achieved in its own way is commendable, and don't start comparison between two individuals, because it's not going to help you at all. Like you're going to be more and more self-critical of yourself when you try to compare yourself to others. I think in my experience I have realized that.
So I moved to the National Center in Hyderabad at the age of 16, which is quite a tender age to be exposed, and it was a big bad world to you're from the cocooned environment at home. You're suddenly living with teammates, training with competitors, traveling with them. Very often team slots are limited, so you're at the end of the day, though they're your teammates, they're also your competitors. You're competing for the same few slots, so it's a very cutthroat competitive environment to be in 24/7 away from family for 5 years. It gets to you. It's like a pressure cooker that builds without you realizing, and you very often don't have an outlet. So it's, if you're not training hard enough, somebody else is, or if you decide to take a day off or skip a session because you're not feeling like it, it'll come and hit you mentally, because you'll open your room door and you'll see somebody else on court, training hard. So it's going to bite you. So there's constant insecurity that builds up. There's constant fear of falling back that builds up. So you end up pushing yourself, you end up overtraining sometimes. And especially in a country like India, where there are numbers, it's not like, in the UK or in anywhere in Europe where there are 4 and 5 players. The work-life balance is maintained. They get their individual attention from the coach when they're on court, and then they all have lives other than that. But in India, there's this constant insecurity. Is the coach giving someone attention? Who's being neglected? There's politics involved. So it's a messy place to be. And more than anything, it starts affecting the players mentally. So you start going down a negative spiral. And that's where, if you as a person are not tuned into your body and you don't value yourself, it's very easy to get sucked into that. So it's a conscious effort that each person has to make to, stay on top of things mentally, be compassionate towards yourself, because otherwise it's going to show the struggle and the toll that it's taking mentally is going to show. Either you start getting injured, or even if you're physically really fit, you're not in the mental state to perform and deliver on match day. So, self-care is something that, as a concept is it doesn't come naturally to us. We like to push our bodies to the hilt. We like to induce that self-inflicted torture, that pain. And we don't feel satisfied with the session till, you've actually really sweated it out and you've come off the court and you're done, you're burnt out. That's when we say, okay, we've had a good session. So it's very easy for us now to go down that path, but to actually, okay, it's okay, I can take a chill today, maybe train 60% and spend the rest of my time doing something else that makes me happy. It's a conscious effort to do that. And it's coming in. I think a lot of the girls especially are becoming more and more aware, and are looking to do things like reading, picking up hobbies, getting creative, to show yourself because you're a human being first. You're going to be in that. Yeah.
No, you just said it. You're a human being first. So same again. I mean, during COVID, and I've had a tough time during the COVID part, and even before, it was all spiraling downwards like no one's business. And I think we're very busy what other people think about us, and we forget about ourselves. It's about everyone else but ourselves. And I think sometimes you have to experience it, because in books all this is written, we've all read it. But I think when it happens to us, and you have to kind of figure it out that, be your best friend, come on. I mean, how can you take care of anyone else if you don't take care of yourself first? So I keep saying this all the time to my patients, for example, because they're too busy. If I don't do this, then what will the other person think? I mean, come on, first do it because of you rather than whoever else.
Totally.
So whether it's dealing with an athlete player, like, someone like Tanvi, saying, I have so much pressure, he's done this, he's done that for me. Come on, what have you done for yourself, and work with that first. And that just makes it easier. Or same actually with people with pain. They again are too busy feeling for everyone else around them that, how are they not living up to whoever else's standards because of their pain, relationships, or whatever else it be. And I think just be your best friend. That's a standard line that everyone gets as a prescription for me. So,
yeah, Rajat, I just wanted to mention that for me, in the next month, my act of self-compassion is to get into a good sleep cycle. There's been so much happening in the world that has been so upsetting. And so I'm not going to be, watching the news so much. And I've decided that I'm going to make sure I get at least 7 hours of sleep a night. Because as you get older and you're juggling more and more with aging parents and young children and your career and your physical fitness and nutrition, and your sleep somehow is very easy to compromise on. So a very important piece in compassion for yourself, I think, is if you can get adequate sleep, life just looks so much better, right?
It does. Actually, when we talk about the 4 verticals that I'm talking about, the first one is sleep, even more than actually nutrition. So I would say if you haven't slept enough, come on, we all sleep 1/3 of our lives. There's a good reason we are supposed to do that.
True, totally.
So simple tip from my side to patients is, as much as most of us have an alarm to wake up, why don't we have an alarm to sleep? Right? Like, this is the cutoff. Like, this is it. And it could be like a build up 30 minutes and we're sleeping, kind of a thing. I think that's very, very important that people need to bring. Okay, I know we need to, we've taken a little longer with all this, but resilient mindset, Sujata, let's just close it with this one then.
Yeah, absolutely. So a resilient mindset is really a growth mindset, right? Where one believes in growth, that every experience can teach us, as long as we remember to incorporate those teachings and take from those failures. Because, everyone has heard of Edison's famous quote, I have not failed 10,000 times. I've successfully found 10,000 different ways of not making a light bulb, right? So it's exactly that in our lives. And I think that's what my graduate years taught me, right? Graduate school with 85% of failures just taught me how to show up the next morning, go back to the lab, see what I did wrong, and fix it and move forward. And in molecular biology, the experiments are so precise and require such attention to detail that you make one misstep in a 5-day long experiment and boom, everything is gone. So that required being in the moment, that required showing up. And I think that really inculcated the growth mindset in me, because I've seen that, life has worked out beautifully, touch wood, God has been kind. But a lot of that is really having that mindset, knowing that you can grow, you can learn, there are other opportunities out there, as long as you, keep your head to the ground. I mean, in terms of whatever it is that you're doing, and stay with it. So stay the course and learn. Just keep learning. I mean, I'm learning so much from all of you right now. It's amazing.
So yeah, fall 6 times, stand up 7 has been mantra, I think, going. You wouldn't last professional sport if you didn't have that mindset, because you are going to lose more matches than you win over the years. But sometimes it takes losses to come back to the drawing board, work things out, fix your footwork, fix your technique, things that you wouldn't have fixed if you hadn't failed. So failure is a part and parcel, I think, of professional sport, of life in general. And there's one quote which I think I've shared with Sujata as well. It means it was the motto, my school motto, which it was a Latin proverb translated into perseverance and faith in God. So there is no short-circuiting hard work, whether it's smart hard work, whether it's smart work, whether it's hard work. Work is important. You have to put in the hours. You have to turn up every day. You have to be dedicated, follow the regimen, and you will, with a certain amount of luck, you will, usually get your due. And then above all, after you've done all your work, you need to have faith in something, whether it's a spiritual something, like a higher energy power, a god, a deity, whatever you may call it. But you need to have faith that things will work out, because if you don't let go and have that detached attitude, it becomes very difficult to perform, actually deliver what you're capable of doing. So do the work and then let go. I think that's the mindset that I try to incorporate in everything I do.
Well, it sounds like Krishna, but awesome, isn't it? Shibani, what would you have to say to this?
So, Rajat, I always feel that you don't learn to be resilient. Like, what you really learn is probably open your arms and embrace the palette, the entire spectrum of experience that life throws at you. It could be ups, it could be downs, it could be grays, it could be whites, it could be any other color. You just learn to embrace it and then, probably overcome it. It's like one of the biggest things that I think this pandemic has taught us is that resilience is being able to live with and also overcome the unexpected that is thrown in your direction. So I think for me, the meaning of resilience is that, like, come what may, like, you have to be like that tree that, stands all the storms. It's like that. And, embrace the beauty of the unexpected that gets thrown in your direction, that teaches you, that's your experience, that's your beautiful life. So I think just embrace it.
Brilliant. Again, all three just said exactly that. So failing is not a crime. Lack of effort is, that we have at large. And it almost seems like life was training us for COVID, while we were going to Ladakh and doing all that.
Yeah.
Because when you have 50% oxygen, way back then, 2010, right? I mean, who was talking about that in Delhi then, right? And what endurance does, ultra distance running does, it's peeling your layers, your artificial layers, if it were, right? Your true self is coming out. And then how do you take the next step and the next step and the next step without knowing if there's a finish line or not? Because almost always there isn't a finish line, or you don't get to the finish line, one of the two things. And we've had the toughest of participants coming and not getting to the finish. And seriously, it's not like just fashionable to say it for me that, failing's not a crime, lack of effort is. But come on, we don't know. We have no idea if there's going to be success. And what is success at the end of the day, right? It's just about getting up every morning and getting on with it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, really. Absolutely.
Yeah, and COVID really adds.
Rajat, also probably they might not have made it to the finish line, but they went back with the experience. They would have learned so much about themselves in that journey towards the finish line. But, as you said, it peels off the layers, but it's an experience that is the best thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rajat, I wanted to actually ask you about that because I think in your website, you say this. Some argue that it's the world's toughest race, missing the point that it doesn't matter. More importantly, it's not about running. And I was curious what you meant by that.
It's about life. So running is not about running. People forget, miss the point. So I'm glad you brought it up. So I think, and again, Shibani touched on it and Tanvi touched on it in a different way. I think we all are running after the wrong. We forget. Down the line, we forget what are we after. We pick up running or badminton or, taekwondo or whatever else, molecular biology or whatever. It's not about the result, actually. It's about the fun that we have while doing it. It's the joy that we get out of it. Yeah. And somewhere down the line, we forget about that, for whatever reason, because we're put into a particular situation and all that. So I think running is about life. Running is about getting to know yourself better. Running is about, just perseverance, just being at it. And that's what I mean. Now, to me, the meaning of La Ultra over the years has become beyond all of this, has become like we all have our challenges in life.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as getting up in the morning. It could be something like getting your kid ready for the school, because that's a challenge for some of us. True. It could be getting to the office, for example, because you don't want to, there's a boss of a certain type or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
All those challenges, when we overcome or we face them and try to overcome, that's what it's all about. So to me, La Ultra has become more like a verb rather than just, it's a race out there. So it's about life, simply.
It's about highlighting that it's the journey.
It's a journey and it's okay. Yeah. We don't. Yeah. So again, at a race, our finish lines are pretty random. You'll be like, but why is this here? It has nothing to do with why is it here. Not even to the distance, actually. It's just because life is such. It starts randomly, it finishes randomly. So why should a race have a start line and a finish? Our distances, for example, people always ask me, like, why is it not a marathon? Why is it not a 100? Why is it not a 200? Why should it be? My choice. I picked up a random number and we kind of carried on with that, repetitive, whatever. So
I love that. Thank you. That's awesome.
Awesome. So anything else in closing, one-liners, maybe if you want to just sum up things, Sujata, again with you.
I loved what you said at the beginning, and I know all three of you agree with me. We give up too soon.
I think if there's one line I would like to close with, there's no such thing as a bad run. So I strongly believe in that. Sometimes you do feel, I don't feel like it, but the moment you're out, you come back in a different mind space. You come back so much happier. So
to me, I think what I truly believe in and I always apply to life or running is always bring good attitude. Whatever you do, bring good attitude to the table and you will see how things change for you. So that is very important for me.
Well, and so I always keep saying, keep smiling and smiling. So I think that's what we'll close with. All right. Thank you so much, ladies. Thanks for coming along.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.